My name is Lin Y. I'm a mystery novelist. My life is a copy-paste routine, precise down to the second. At 9 a.m. sharp, I swipe my card and step into my cage. The receptionist smiles and says, "Morning, Mr. Lin." At 6:45 p.m., I pass the front desk, nodding back. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Lin." My apartment is 3.6 kilometers from the office. It takes 11 minutes, 3 traffic lights, and 3 turns. I get home at 7:03 p.m. Change shoes, drop my bag, heat up a microwave meal. At 10:23 p.m. sharp, I crawl into bed. It's been like this for 3 years, like a perfectly running machine. No pain, just complete numbness. I used to complain about how boring it was, but if I had known what was coming, I swear I wouldn't have complained about a single thing. That day, everything started out normal. I lined up my shoes at the entryway, stuffed my bag into the gap on the bookshelf, and listened to the microwave ding. After choking down another half-hearted meal, I racked my brain, trying to plan a murder scene for my novel, only to realize that my own life was emptier than any character I'd ever written. But everything changed in the middle of the night. The water glass began to shake violently in the dead silence. Its base rattled against the wood, making a harsh, clattering noise. I bolted awake. My eyes snapped open, but there was nothing there. Was it just an illusion? No. The next second, the world began to spin. A bizarre, static buzzing filled my ears, like a million insects gnawing at my nerves. The bed started to vibrate, and then the entire room began to plummet. The bookshelf, the desk, the lamp. Everything broke free from gravity, falling with me into a silent void. I grabbed the blanket with a death grip, my mind going completely blank. This makes no sense. This is impossible. I screamed frantically in my head, but my voice was swallowed by the weightless abyss. A mystery novelist who specializes in perfect crimes was now falling into a chasm I couldn't possibly explain. Dizziness rushed over me like a tidal wave. In the final second before my consciousness was swallowed whole, only one thought remained. True horror never follows logic. Then, everything faded to black. The moment Ling Wen opened his eyes, a strange, unsettling sensation spread across his neck. Instinctively, he reached up to touch it. His fingertips brushed against cold metal and a thick layer of sharp barbs. A thorny, collar-like device was clamped tight against his carotid artery, constricting slightly, like a living creature. All around him was a chaotic, grayish-black void. Rough stone walls stretched out in all directions, forming a massive, circular hall. The ground was damp, and the air was thick with the stench of rotting rust. Surrounding the hall were 20 sealed cells. Every visible door around them was sealed, completely shut. The 19 strangers collapsed in the hall were waking up, one by one. Each of them wore the exact same collar. Panic spread almost instantly. Screams, curses, and hysterical struggling filled the air. Someone tried to rip their collar off, and bars immediately dug deep into their flesh. Blood trickled down past their collarbone. Lin Yuan didn't move. As a mystery novelist, he knew that panic was the most useless reaction. Suppressing his pain, he quickly scanned every single face. A cold mechanical voice echoed down from the dome. "Welcome to the Nightmare Abyss." The rules were read out, one by one, like a death warrant. There are 4 types of symbols on the back of the collars. They are snake, crow deer, and demon. They change randomly each round. Players cannot see their own. 20 separate cells are distributed around the hall. Each round of the game lasts for 1 hour. The cell doors will close in the final 5 minutes. Once inside, you must correctly name the symbol on the back of your collar. Get it right, and you remain in the dream. Get it wrong, and your consciousness will be obliterated forever. The mechanical voice continued. A nightmare lurks among the 20 players. If the nightmare is eliminated, all survivors will wake up together. But if only the nightmare and one final player remain, the nightmare wins, and the players lose. There are 3 prohibitions. It is forbidden for 2 or more people to enter the same cell. It is forbidden to block others from entering. It is forbidden to use force or any other means to prevent someone from answering. Violators will be eliminated on the spot. The final sentence seeped deep into everyone's consciousness. This is a game that tests trust. I advise all of you to find a partner you can trust. In an instant, the seeds of suspicion take root in 20 pairs of eyes. You can't see your own mark. You have to rely on someone else. But if they lie, you will die. Here, trust is the equivalent of pressing your neck against a blade. Ling Yuan quickly runs through the scenarios. From a purely logical standpoint, if he could use the reflection of a smooth object to see the back of his neck, he wouldn't need to ask anyone for help. But as he looks around, the stone walls are completely rough and textured. Even the water provided at the supply station in the center of the hall is muddy. The dark, dream-like stone prison cuts off any hope of self-rescue. A middle-aged man in a cheap suit is the first to speak. "Everyone, the rules are clear. As long as we tell each other our marks, everyone can survive." A female nurse immediately responds. 3 college students follow suit. A 5-member mutual aid alliance forms within 2 minutes. They gather in a circle, checking the marks on the backs of each other's necks, whispering their findings. Lin Yan doesn't join them. It's not that he doesn't want to, but because he has noticed someone else. On the other side of the hall, a kind-looking, white-haired old man is crouching next to a weeping girl, gently patting her shoulder. The old man's voice is as gentle as a late-night radio host, each word landing precisely on the rawest nerves of the broken-down victims. In just a few minutes, 4 people have already gathered around him, looking at him with eyes full of desperate reliance.
Lin Yan arrows his eyes slightly.
His years of experience as a profiler tell him this level of empathetic manipulation only comes from 2 kinds of people: saints or apex predators. But there are no saints in this dream. The red countdown on the ceiling ticks down to the last 5 minutes. The cell doors are about to close. Lin Yan turns and heads toward the cell in the furthest corner. As he passes a stone pillar, his peripheral vision catches a figure. A baseball cap is pulled down low, hiding their face, leaning in the shadows, with an unsettling smirk playing on his lips. Looking at Lin Yuan, there is no fear in his eyes, no anxiety, only pure, almost thrill-seeking excitement. Those are not the eyes of a prey. They are the eyes of a hunter. Lin Yan steps into the cell. The stone door slams shut with a heavy crash. In the darkness, a mechanical voice crackles. State your mark. He has no allies. No one to tell him the answer. There are 4 possible marks. He has only a 1 in 4 chance of surviving tonight. Lin Yan closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and speaks. The stone door grinds open. Lin Yan steps out of the cell. He survived, but it wasn't just blind luck. In the final 3 seconds before entering the cell, he caught a faint, blurry reflection on the damp surface of a stone pillar. It wasn't enough to see the whole picture, but it was enough to rule out 2 shapes, leaving him with a choice between 2, and he won the bet. But this method is impossible to replicate. When the next round of marks refreshes, the damp patch won't necessarily be in the same spot. Ultimately, he needs a reliable source of information, which means he has to trust someone. The main hall reopens. All 20 players walk out of their cells. Everyone survived the first round. The 5-man alliance and the captain celebrate, while the old man's squad is safe and sound. But not everyone is celebrating. A dull thud echoes from the east side. Feng Yan looks over toward the sound and witnesses the most primal law of this game. A savage, heavy-jowled bald man has his foot slammed hard onto the chest of a young guy in glasses. The young guy is curled up in the corner, one of his lenses shattered, his lips completely bloodless. Listen close, the bald man growls, crouching down. His voice sounds like grinding stones. Every single round. The very first thing you do is look at the back of my neck. Now tell me my mark. If you dare to get even a single word wrong, I'll snap your fingers, 1 by 1, then throw you into a cell so you can take your sweet time answering. The guy with glasses is shaking all over, barely squeezing out a shaky. Oh, okay. Lin Yuan watches coldly from the sidelines. The rules forbid using violence to stop someone from answering, but this bald guy is towing the line perfectly. He'll beat you until you wish you were dead, but he'll never actually strip away your ability to speak. He has mastered the fine line of violence in the most brutal way possible. It's a twisted parasitic relationship. Bald guy needs 4 eyes vision, and guy with glasses needs the bald guy's charity just to stay alive. As for who's going to tell 4 eyes what his own mark is, the bald guy couldn't care less. Lin Yuan mentally labels him as a transactional tool. Utterly selfish. It's 0 empathy. This kind of person wouldn't be the nightmare. The nightmare needs a disguise. They need to make people willingly hand over their trust. But this bald guy wears his threat right on his face. It's too stupid. The truly dangerous ones are those who make you lower your guard on your own. Lin Yuan shifts his gaze to the old man. Right now, the old man is handing a bowl of dark soup to a frail woman. His voice as warm as a spring breeze. Drink some of this. Don't be afraid. We're going to get out of here alive. Together. With trembling hands, the woman takes the bowl, her eyes completely bloodshot. The old man gently pats the back of her hand, then turns to comfort the next person. Every single gesture is flawless, every word perfectly chosen. But Lin Yuan catches a telling detail. Every time the old man speaks to comfort someone, he first scans the room to see how many eyes are on him. He is putting on a show. As the countdown for the second round starts, the marks on the back of everyone's necks refresh. The alliance members busily look at each other, reporting what they see. The bald guy grabs 4 eyes by the hair, forcing him to read out the answers. Tense whispers fill the hall. Lin Yan remains standing alone in the corner, with no allies and no information. A voice sounds from behind him. So, you're on your own too? He turns around. The guy in the baseball cap is leaning against the stone wall. Under the brim of his cap, half of a cold, stern face is visible, hands stuffed deep in his pockets. He looks so relaxed, like he was on vacation. How did you survive the first round without anyone top? Lin Yan fell silent for 2 seconds. What about you? The guy in the cap smirked. His smile was completely devoid of warmth. It flashed cold, like light reflecting off a blade. Just a guess. A 1 in 4 chance isn't exactly low. His tone was so casual. It was like he was just betting the price of a dinner. His complete lack of fear toward death wasn't an act. It was a bone-deep apathy bleeding through. Lin Yuan had seen people like this before. In the interrogation rooms of maximum security felons, When the countdown ticked past 40 minutes, the guy in the cap turned and walked toward the cells. Without looking back, he tossed over his shoulder. Next round, I'll tell you your hint print. Whether you tell me mine is up to you. Lin Wen watched him disappear behind the stone pillars. It wasn't trust. It wasn't goodwill. It was a hunter's instinct. This man, like him, did not belong to the herd of sheep, but aligning with a beast always came with a price. In this game, the ultimate price was exposing your back to them. In the final 5 minutes of the second round, the cell doors were about to lock shut. Ling Yuan had to make a choice. He walked in the direction of the guy in the cap. When Lan Ryan found the guy in the cap, the man was crouching by the cell door, scratching something on the floor with a piece of gravel. Your imprint is a snake. The guy in the cap didn't even look up. Lin Yan stopped in his tracks. He had no way of verifying the truth, but his gut told him. This man had no reason to lie in the second round. Killing a stranger wouldn't benefit him at all. Yours is the goat, Lei Yuan said. The guy in the cap finally looked up. The eyes beneath the brim of his cap were like two dried-up wells. Deal. There was no handshake, no unnecessary words. Both men stepped into their respective cells. The stone doors slammed shut. A mechanical whirring sound echoed. Lin Yan called out snake. Instantly, the thorn collar loosened. Correct. Round 2 is over. All 20 players survived. As round 3 began, the setup in the hall had quietly changed. The old man's group had swollen to 6 people. This white-haired senior, who called himself a philanthropist, had executed a textbook demonstration of trust building in less than 2 rounds. First, bestow a favor. He would voluntarily reveal his target's mark, binding them with the sentiment, I helped you, so now you must help others. And finally, he would reel them in. We are a team. Without this group, none of us will survive. Lin Yan watched his every move from a distance. As a novelist specializing in psychology, he was all too familiar with this kind of rhetoric. Cult leaders, pyramid scheme bosses, and PUA masters. The core logic of all mind control is the same. First, create dependency, then monopolize their sense of security. And this old man did it more elegantly than anyone else. Right now, the old man was talking to the man in the suit. The 5-man alliance had already exposed its fatal flaw. Their numbers were too small. Once someone betrayed them, an entire chain would instantly snap. The old man captured this anxiety with surgical precision. Let's merge, the old man said, patting the suit-wearing man on the shoulder. 10 people are always safer than 5. The more of us there are, the less the nightmare will dare to strike. The man in the suit hesitated for a moment, then nodded. The 10-person camp was officially formed. Half of the people in the hall now gathered around the old man. The rest were scattered around. The passionate duo of the bald guy and the guy with glasses, a few lone wolves.
As well as Vinlan, Yashi, and Manan.
Lei Yan noticed a crucial detail after the merger. The old man didn't have everyone share their marks with each other. Instead, he set up a hub-and-spoke system where everyone reported their marks only to him. The old man would then distribute the information as he saw fit. His excuse was high-sounding. With too many people talking at once, it's easy to make mistakes. It's safest for me to coordinate everything. No one objected. The old man had already proven his reliability, with correct answers in the last 2 rounds. But Lin Yuan saw right through it. The old man had made himself the sole node holding all the marks. 10 lives were now clenched tightly in his hand alone. This isn't about helping each other. It's a setup to control them. Lin Yuan and the guy in the baseball cap met behind the stone pillar. The guy in the baseball cap gestured with his chin toward the old man. That old guy is pretty interesting. Far too interesting. Flow. Suspicious. Lin Yuan didn't give a direct answer. We don't have enough evidence. It's too early to draw conclusions. But one basic logic remains. Mangxi's goal is to make everyone tear each other apart, instead of doing the dirty work himself. And what the old man is doing is putting all the eggs in one basket. All it takes is one single bomb, and 10 lives will instantly be blown to pieces. The final countdown. 5 minutes left. Everyone headed into their own cells. Before stepping through the stone door, Ling Yuan glanced back. The king stood right in the center of the hall, surrounded by the crowd, with a warm, benevolent smile on his face. That smile reminded Lin Yan of a single word. Shepherd. But a shepherd never raises sheep just to keep them alive. As the stone door slammed shut, everyone survived the 3rd round. Trust, the higher you build it, the more devastating the collapse. Where will the first crack appear? Lei Yan already had a gut feeling. In the 10-person camp, there was an extremely anxious girl. Her hands had been shaking. By the time the 4th round began, the atmosphere in the hall was completely different from the 1st round. The 10-person camp occupied the most spacious area. Its members gathered around the supply station. On the surface, it looked completely harmonious. The old man sat right in the middle, like a statue of Buddha. Whenever anyone approached him, they instinctively lowered their voice. But watching from the outskirts, Lin Yan saw the cracks. Among the 3 college students, the curly-haired girl was clearly not okay. Even though her classmate was constantly trying to comfort her, her fingers hadn't stopped trembling since the 2nd round. Her eyes darted around frantically, and her breathing was shallow and rapid. A textbook, acute anxiety attack. In the real world, this isn't fatal. But in this game, anxiety is a killer. The marks refreshed. and the 10-person camp went about its usual routine. Each person checked the mark on the back of their partner's neck, then immediately reported it to the old man. And then the old man would announce them to everyone. The girl's partner was a male college student traveling with her. Shaking with fear, the tall girl in the baseball cap stared at the back of his neck. As her partner tried to calm her down, her lips quivered. She finally choked out a couple of words. It's a snake. But she was wrong. The student's mark was actually a duck, not a snake. He couldn't see it himself. He had no choice but to trust his partner. The old man took the answer and passed it along exactly as she said. No one dared to double-check it. Take it. Because in the rules of the cannibal camp, double-checking meant a lack of trust, and mistrust was the ultimate sin. Countdown. The last 5 minutes. 3 minutes after the cell doors slammed shut. Blood splattered all over the glass of cell number 7. The moment the college student blurted out snake, the thorny collar suddenly tightened. The spikes pierced straight through his carotid artery. He didn't even have time to let out a full scream. His consciousness was completely snuffed out. When the cell doors slid open again, everyone saw the corpse inside cell number 7. Fresh blood seeped out from under the door, winding into a thin line across the rough, solid floor. The moment the girl saw his body, her knees buckled. She collapsed to the ground, letting out a gut-wrenching wail. She didn't mean any harm. She was just too terrified. Under sheer panic, the marks of the snake and the duck had blurred together in her mind. Her brain, crushed under the immense pressure, had made a fatal mistake. But the truth didn't matter. In the face of terror, her truth never stood a chance. She did it on purpose. A voice yelled from the crowd. Is she the nightmare? A second voice immediately followed. The girl shook her head frantically, sounding so hard she could barely breathe. Once suspicion finds its voice, it never goes quiet. The looks on everyone's faces in the cannibal camp shifted. Any warmth that was once there vanished instantly, replaced by cold, calculating stares, suspicion, and a chilling indifference born of self-preservation. The old man stepped forward. He slowly walked up to the girl. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he knelt down and handed her a bowl of black soup. His voice was as gentle as ever. Don't cry, child. We all know you didn't do it on purpose. The girl nodded desperately. Desperate, she clung to the old man as her last saving straw. The old man stood up and turned to the crowd. His voice was heavy, yet decisive. This has taught us a hard lesson. Brigitte might be hiding right among us. She could kill any one of us at any moment with a wrong mark. For everyone's safety, I propose that if someone is suspected by the majority, we collectively report an error mark against them and vote them out. The man in the suit frowned, wanting to speak up, but as he looked around, he realized that fear had already consumed everyone's eyes. A life had just vanished right before them. No one wanted to be next. The old man's proposal was cruel, but it gave them a way to vent their terror. As long as they could eliminate the suspect, the rest of them would be safe. I agree. The nurse was the first to raise her hand. 1, 2, 6. Until a 7th hand rose, trembling. The old man nodded slightly. His gaze swept over to the girl, who was still kneeling on the floor. He didn't call her out, but everyone understood what that look meant. The girl finally stopped crying. She looked up, her face stained with tears, and stared in shock at her classmate. Her lips trembled soundlessly. She wanted to beg for mercy, only to find that no one would look at her. Standing further away, Ling Yan unconsciously clenched his right fist. He had just realized something. The old man's reaction time was too fast. From the moment the incident happened to when he proposed the voting system, took less than 3 minutes. This wasn't quick thinking. He had planned this all along. He was waiting for this exact opportunity. Perhaps from the very beginning. He was just waiting for the first person to slip up. The countdown for the next round had already begun. The girl only had 55 minutes left. If no one was willing to tell her the correct mark, she is as good as dead. The marks for the 5th round have refreshed. A girl is kneeling in the center of the hall, looking at her former companions one by one, but not a single soul will look her in the eye. Not even the friend who used to comfort her all the time. The man in the suit keeps his head down, staring intently at the tips of his shoes. The nurse turns her back, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. The rest of them either avert their eyes or just walk away entirely. The old man stands just 3 steps away from her, wearing an expression of deep pity, as if this outcome breaks his heart more than anyone else's. Please, I beg you. I'm not the nightmare. Her voice is hoarse, and she is utterly dehydrated from crying. Her lips cracked and peeling. I was just so scared. My eyes played tricks on me. Please, just give me one more chance. The old man falls silent, then sighs. My child, he says slowly. I believe you. But this isn't up to me alone. Who turns to the crowd? Let us vote. Raise your hand if you think we should give her another chance. Nobody raises a hand. It wasn't that everyone was sure she was the nightmare, but no one dared to take that risk. After all, what if she actually was? Faced with a 1 in 19 chance versus their own lives, there was only ever one choice. The old man dumped the decision entirely onto the crowd, and the crowd shared the blame. among themselves. That way, murder became something no single person had to feel guilty for. This is the most brilliant weapon of all. Very well then. The old man's voice is as calm as still water. For this round, we won't tell her what the correct mark is. The moment those words leave his mouth, the very last spark of hope dies in the girl's eyes. From a distance, Ling Yan watches the entire scene unfold. He can see right through every single step of the old man's manipulation. First, use empathy to establish authority. He's using fear to pit people against each other. And finally, wrapping cold-blooded murder in the guise of democracy. No one was forced to vote. No violence was used. Not even a single lie was told. Every single person who raised their hand believed they were making a rational choice. But isn't this the textbook definition of a cult purge? The other college student, the surviving girl, stood at the very edge of the crowd. She had just witnessed her classmate's death, and now she was about to witness her friend's execution. He was stretched to her absolute breaking point, like a wire wound too tight. The old man walked over to her side. He patted her shoulder. Those of us who stay must stick together. I will protect you. The girl nodded vigorously, her eyes filled with absolute, unconditional trust. Ling Yan looked over in the old man's direction. The safe zone was shrinking, yet the shepherd's grip was only tightening. The countdown ticked past 50 minutes. The girl sentenced to death had stopped crying, slumped in the corner, her eyes completely hollow. As Ling Yan walked past her, he stopped. Saving her would be easy. He just had to tell her the correct mark. But doing that meant openly defying the 10-person camp and painting a target on his own back. He kept telling himself to stay out of it. Yet, Lin Yan knelt down beside her. He lowered his voice so only she could hear him. Your mark is the path. The girl snapped her head up, staring at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. Just remember it. Lin Yan stood up and walked away without looking back. This wasn't an act of kindness. This was a test. He wanted to see how the old man would react to an unexpected variable. If the girl survived this round, the old man's next move would expose even more flaws. The final 5 minutes. The cell doors slammed shut. The members of the 10-person camp retreated to their respective cells, utter to convinced the girl was as good as dead. 3 minutes later, the lights in every single cell flickered on at the exact same time. Out of the 18 villagers, not a single one was eliminated, including that girl. The moment the cell doors swung open, the camp members' faces were filled with utter confusion. How was he still alive? Who gave him the correct answer? The crowd started whispering frantically, and panic began to mount once more. The old man's smile vanished for 0.3 seconds. Just 0.3 seconds. In that brief moment of lost control, the old man's left hand had unconsciously brushed against his left ear. Ling Yan's heart didn't skip a beat, but his pupils contracted slightly. He committed this gesture to memory. After the 5th round ended, the news of the girl's survival was like a stone dropped into dead water. The cannibal camp erupted. The old man immediately summoned all the members, interrogating them one by one about who leaked the mark. The 8 of them looked at each other in silence, all of them denying it. The old man's face remained calm, and his voice was as gentle as ever. It's fine. Perhaps he guessed correctly on his own. A 1 in 4 chance isn't that low. But his gaze swept past the crowd, landed on Ling Yan, who was standing by a stone pillar in the distance. His eyes lingered there for a full 2 seconds. Ling Yan met his gaze, refusing to look away. Across the vast hall, they locked eyes like two beasts in the shadows, sizing up each other's territory. Finally, the old man was the first to look away. He turned and continued to calm down the camp members. Their first clash? Silent and invisible, yet filled with hidden blades. The girl who had been saved didn't return to the camp. She huddled in a corner, too terrified to go near anyone. Not even Lin Wan. She didn't know who she could trust anymore. All she knew was that, in everyone's eyes, she was now an outcast. Lin Yan didn't pay her any more attention. Once the chess piece was played, there was no need to worry about it anymore. What he cared about was how the chessboard would shift, and another corner of that board was already bleeding. The bald man's brutality escalated in the 5th round. No longer satisfied with mere threats, he began using pain to enforce absolute obedience. The left pinky finger of the guy in glasses was bent at a sickening, unnatural angle. It was his punishment. Broken by the bald guy back in the 4th round, all because he hesitated for just 1 second when calling out the mark. 3 seconds, the bald guy had muttered, holding up 3 of his thick, meaty fingers. From now on, at the start of every round, you have exactly 3 seconds to read my mark. If you take a second longer, I'll snap another finger. The guy in glasses kept his head low. Behind his shattered lenses, his eyes had completely lost focus. He didn't cry. He didn't beg for mercy. He was like a hollow shell, stripped of his very soul. But Ling Wan noticed that his right hand was tightly clenched into a fist. His nails were digging deep into his palm, drawing blood. That wasn't fear. It was pure, unadulterated hatred, pushed to its absolute limit, waiting to The countdown for the 6th round began. Just like before, the bald guy grabbed the guy in glasses by his hair, forcing him to look at the mark on the back of his neck. Within 2 seconds, the glasses guy blurted out the answer. It was so fast, it looked like a pure reflex. Satisfied, the bald guy let go. He swaggered over to the supply station to grab some water. leaving the guy in glasses kneeling on the ground. His eyes glared with pure venom at the bald guy's retreating figure. Right then, an object slid right next to his knee. It was a stone. Its edge had been ground to a razor-sharp finish. It gleamed coldly in the dim light. The guy in glasses snapped his head up. The man in the baseball cap stood in the shadows just 2 steps away. Hands casually slipped into his pockets. A faint smirk played on his lips. I sharpened that stone against the corner of the cell wall. It took me quite some time. The man in the baseball cap spoke as casually, as if they were just making small talk. You can use it for self-defense. Wah! Or you can use it for something else. The guy in glasses stared at the stone, the fear in his eyes giving way to the sheer humiliation of the past 5 rounds. The excruciating pain of his broken finger. The image of the bald guy's completely defenseless neck every time he turned his back. It all came rushing back to him at once. Because the absolute end of fear is bloodshed. With those words, the man in the baseball cap turned and walked away, like a farmer walking away after planting a single seed. Slowly, the guy in glasses reached out and wrapped his hand around the stone. A cold, icy sensation crept up from his fingertips, freezing his very heart. He hid the stone inside his clothes. His movements agonizingly slow. So slow, it felt like some sort of sacred ritual. From behind a stone pillar, Lin Yan witnessed the entire thing. Now, he finally knew who the man in the low-slung cap really was. He wasn't a player. He was an arsonist. He didn't light the flames himself. He just placed the matches right into the hands of those desperate to burn. In the hall, the bald guy was throwing back a cup of black soup, completely unaware of the eyes boring into the back of his neck. Eyes filled with a dark, primal rage he had never shown before.
It wasn't Conquest.
It was Shisu. The countdown had only 10 minutes left. Pressed against the waist of the guy in glasses, the cold stone was slowly warming up against his skin. He was waiting for the exact moment the bald man turned around. 6 rounds had passed safely. Then, the 7th round of marks refreshed. The guy in glasses, Jia Li, called out the bald man's mark within 3 seconds. The bald guy grunted, satisfied enough. He turned around and walked toward the supply station, but the guy in glasses didn't move. He remained on his knees, slowly sliding his right hand inside his clothes. His fingertips brushed against the stone, the one he had kept warm with his own body heat for an entire round. Its jagged edge sliced into his index finger. Blood began to seep out, but he felt absolutely no pain. Or rather, compared to the agony he had endured over the last 6 rounds, this tiny scratch was nothing. At the supply station, the bald guy bent over to grab some water, leaving the back of his neck completely wide open. 4 steps away, no one else was around the stone walls. The guy in glasses stood up. Behind his shattered lenses, his eyes were bloodshot. His pupils were terrifyingly calm. At the end of fear lies slaughter. The word stabbed into his brain like a red-hot iron needle, burning right through his last shred of sanity. Step 1. His hand didn't shake. Step 2. His breathing stayed perfectly steady. Step 3. He gripped the stone. Step 4. He drove it brutally into the back of the bald guy's neck, right into the flesh just beneath the collar of thorns. The bald man let out a wild, beast-like roar as blood sprayed violently from the wound. Upon seeing the glasses guy's face, he wanted to yank the stone out and stab him a second time, but the bald guy's reaction was way beyond what he expected. This muscular brute didn't even fall after taking that fatal blow. Instead, he suddenly whipped around, sepped the stone away with one hand, while his other hand clamped onto the glasses guy's neck like an iron vice. The glasses guy was lifted right off the ground, his feet dangling in midair. His face turned a deep, purplish red. He kicked his legs frantically, his fingernails clawing bloody gashes into the bald guy's wrist, but that hand didn't budge an inch. "How dare you!" Blood was gushing from the bald guy's neck like a broken faucet. His voice completely warped and distorted. Yet the grip of his hand only grew tighter and tighter. The glasses guy's windpipe was being crushed, letting out broken, wheezing gasps from his throat. He opened his mouth, desperately trying to speak, but couldn't squeeze out a single word. Everyone in the hall heard the commotion, and they all turned to look. Some screamed, others, but no one stepped forward to stop it. Ling Yan stood behind a stone pillar, his expression completely unfazed as he continued to count down. Rule number 3. It is strictly forbidden to use force or any other means to prevent someone from answering. The bald guy had choked the glasses guy, directly stripping away his ability to speak. A clear violation. But the glasses guy had struck first, driving the stone into the back of the bald guy's neck, which also posed a physical threat to the other's ability to answer. Both of them had crossed the red line simultaneously. The mechanical voice from the dome suddenly rang out, cold and decisive. Violation detected. Players 0, 7, and 13 are eliminated immediately. 2 thorn collars snapped shut simultaneously. The bald guy's grip on the glasses guy's throat finally loosened. Not because he chose to let go, but because his carotid artery had been completely shredded by the thorns. His consciousness was snuffed out in less than half a second. His body fell straight backward like a log, crashing onto the stone floor. A dull, heavy thud echoes. The guy with glasses crashes to the ground. At that exact moment, his collar triggers in sync. His mouth hangs wide open, silently staring up at the ceiling. The cracked lenses of his glasses reflect the haunting glow of the light. In his very last second, the corner of his mouth seems to twitch into a faint smile, like a final release. Two bodies now lie side by side in a pool of blood. The hall falls into a dead silence. Lin Yan's gaze doesn't land on the corpses. Instead, it fixes on the guy in the baseball cap. He is leaning against the furthest stone wall, hands stuffed in his pockets, watching it all unfold with a blank expression, like he's admiring a masterpiece he created with his own hands. When he handed over that stone, he knew this would happen. No, this is exactly the outcome he wanted. 2 lives, 1 stone, 1 simple truth. An arsonist never cares who gets burned alive. After this round, there are only 18 people left on the field. 17. The girl exiled from the camp completely broke down the moment she witnessed the double kill. After entering her cell in the next round, she triggered the wrong mark. 16. The gears of death are beginning to spin faster. 3 rounds of double kills have filled the entire dream space with the stench of blood and madness. 16. The bodies of the bald guy and the guy with glasses are dragged to the corner of the hall. To this day, no one dares to go near the cell of the girl who broke down. Death is no longer an abstract concept. It's the dried blood splattered on the glass of the cell next door. Caught in their fear, the old man's 10-person camp hasn't collapsed. Instead, they are clinging to each other even tighter. This is exactly the result the old man wanted. The greater the external threat, the more the flock relies on the shepherd. But the shepherd's shears are already raised. Before the 8th round begins, the old man gathers his camp members to sit in a circle. His voice is heavier than ever. 4 people have died in 3 rounds. The seer must still be hiding among us. He might be waiting for us to let our guard down before making his move in the next round. Everyone's eyes begin to wander. Suspecting who? The person next to them? The person opposite them? Every single face looks suspicious. Every glance seems to be hiding something. The old man threw out his first blade, and I noticed something. During the last round, when number 09 was reporting her mark, she hesitated for a long time. Number 09 was a quiet, middle-aged woman who had barely said a word from the very beginning. She suddenly snapped her head up, but as the people around her shook their heads, her face filled with absolute terror. I was just trying to remember. A nightmare has no need to remember. The old man's voice was gentle, yet deadly, because a nightmare already knows everyone's marks. But she has to pretend to think, just to mask how calm she actually is. The logic was full of holes, but fear stripped everyone of their judgment. The voting began, with 6 votes in favor of elimination and 2 abstentions. The middle-aged woman screamed, trying to run, but nobody helped her. No one had told her the correct mark for the next round, and cell number 9 was left with yet another blood-stained glass wall. Once a precedent is set, killing becomes an addiction. In the 9th round, the old man pointed out that the man in the suit was avoiding eye contact. The man in the suit defended himself desperately, claiming he was the very first one to suggest they help each other. How could he possibly be the nightmare? The old man sighed. That is precisely why you are the most suspicious. The best way for a nightmare to hide their identity is to be the first to step up and pledge loyalty. The man in the suit was eliminated by 6 votes. In the 10th round, the female nurse was purged simply because she had been too close to the man in the suit. In the 11th round, a man who had been quiet the entire time was executed because silence itself was deemed suspicious. During every single vote, the old man never personally made a proposal. He only offered his objective analysis. The knives were raised by the crowd. The blood was shed by the crowd, while his own hands remained completely clean. Staying on the sidelines, Lin Yuan silently tracked the logic behind every single elimination, and he found a pattern. Every target the old man chose shared a common trait. They all had a strong capacity for independent thought, or they had questioned the old man's authority, if only for a split second. He wasn't hunting down nightmares. He was shearing his flock, pruning away any branch that dared to grow out of line, until only the most obedient sheep were left, especially that female student. By the end of the 12th round, only 8 players remained. Out of the 10-person camp, only the old man and that completely brainwashed college girl were left. Every other member had fallen to bitter infighting. The man in the suit, the female nurse, and 3 lone wolf players fell one by one under the brutal weight of the voting machine. The ultimate irony was their very last breath. None of them knew if they were destroyed by Meng Ye or by the companions they once trusted. The truth? It was both. The lineup of the final 8 was now crystal clear. The old man, the college girl, Lin Yan, the guy in the baseball cap, Shua, and the 4 solo players who had always stayed completely outside the camp. Lin Lan leaned against a stone pillar, gazing at the empty cells scattered across the hall. Out of 20 cells, 12 had dried blood splattered across their glass walls. As the game dragged on, not a single person had been killed by Meng Ye's own hands. He had simply sat in the very center of the crowd, smiling as he watched the sheep tear each other's throats out. Shura walked up to Ding Wen's side. The two stood side by side, their eyes locking onto the old man at the exact same time. Are you sure it's him? Shura asked. Lin didn't answer right away. The chain of evidence was still missing its final link. But he knew that over the next few rounds, the old man would accelerate his slaughter. 8 players was still too many. The old man needed to whittle the numbers down to a final, one-on-one showdown. That would be the nightmare's true finale. Let's wait one more round, Lin said. And then came the 13th round. The old man began clearing out the solo players. The 4 independent players wandering outside the camp were his final obstacles. It had no organization, no alliance, surviving only on fragile, temporary deals made with one another. You'll help me check the mark this round, and I'll help you next round. The old man didn't even need to lift a finger. He only had to sever the chain of transactions between them. The method was terrifyingly simple. He sent a college girl to approach one of the solo players, a middle-aged male teacher, with absolute sincerity in her eyes and a trembling voice. She claimed she could no longer survive in the camp. She said she wanted to escape from the old man, begging the teacher to help her. After hesitating over and over, the teacher finally agreed, welcoming her into his temporary network of survival deals. In the next round, the college girl went back to the old man's side, bringing back the solo player's trade pairings, who was matched with whom, and who depended on whom. The old man nodded with a smile, like a general receiving a crucial war map. In the 14th round, the old man deliberately gave the male teacher the wrong emergency code. When the lights in cell 14 went out, another life vanished, strangled by the economic collar. And the male teacher's trading partner, a young chef, lost his only source of information. In the next round, he was forced to guess blindly. The 1 in 4 chance was not on his side. 2 rounds, 2 people eliminated. Only 6 people remained. In the 15th round, the 3rd solo player approached the old man of his own accord, kneeling to beg to join his camp. The old man gently helped him up with a warm, kindly smile, patted his shoulder, and said, "You should have come sooner. We're family." That very night, this solo player was voted out. The reason given? He joined too late, and his motives were suspicious. Only 5 remained. The old man, the college girl, Lin, Sua, and the last solo player, a frail, skinny, geeky girl. Before the 16th round began, the frail, geeky girl saw right through her situation. She walked into the center of the hall, faced everyone, and said in a hoarse but clear voice, "You're all blind. The nightmare has been killing 15 people right in front of your eyes from the very beginning, and you're still listening to him." She raised her hand and pointed right at the old man. The old man's expression didn't flicker in the slightest. He only let out a soft sigh. She's just too terrified, and she's starting to lose her mind. Don't let her get to you, everyone. The college girl immediately echoed him. Exactly. She must be the nightmare, trying to tear us apart. The outcome of the vote held no suspense. Before the frail, geeky girl stepped into the cell, she looked back at Lin Yan. There was no plea for help in her eyes, only endless exhaustion and a sliver of defiance. The cell doors shut. The lights went out. Only 4 remained. After the 16th round ended, Shura walked up to Lin Yan. The 2 of them stood in the most secluded corner of the room, their backs pressed against the stone wall, directly facing the old man and the female college student across the hall. Still waiting? For the first time, impatience crept into Shura's voice. "I'm not waiting anymore. It's him," Lin Yan replied. "And here is the proof. Every single time before he reports the mark in his cell, he touches his left ear. No exceptions in all 16 rounds." Shula raised an eyebrow. Lin Yan continued. "There is something hidden in his left ear. He is the one who constructed this entire dreamscape. He doesn't need anyone to tell him what the marks are. He has his own channel of information. That gesture is just a subconscious way of confirming it. Just like how you lick your lips right before you kill someone. Don't deny it. You did it right as you handed the stone to the guy with the glasses." Shura didn't deny it. Instead, he smirked. His smile was cold, yet filled with dark admiration. "Then let's kill him and wake everyone up. It's simple. In the next round, we'll feed him the wrong mark." "No," Lin Wen shook his head. "That would be far too easy on him." Shura's smile froze for a split second, and then slowly widened, curling into a much more sinister grin. He got Lin Wen's drift. "You are far more interesting than I thought." Shura extended his hand. Lin Yan stared at it, hesitating for 2 seconds, before firmly gripping it. 2 hunters, far from being mere sheep, forged a pact beyond good and evil in the shadows of the 16th round. This pact had only one goal, and it wasn't just to kill the nightmare, but to make him suffer a fate worse than death. Round 17. Only 4 players and 20 cells remained. Bloodstains covered the glass of 16 of those cells. The hall was as empty and silent as a graveyard. Most of the supplies were still left, more than enough to last a long time. Fortunately, they were on the side they could afford to be patient. The old man sat in the center, with the female college student clinging tightly to his side. Leon and Jura stood directly opposite them. The 4 of them were locked in a silent standoff, with the game entering its final stage. The old man only needed to eliminate 2 more people. By keeping the most obedient college girl, he could complete his one-on-one elimination. But Lin Yu and Shura had never been swayed by any mind games. Like 2 nails driven deep into the chessboard, the old man changed his strategy. He stopped trying to win them over. Instead, he decided to destroy them from within. When the marks refreshed, the old man pulled the college girl into a corner and whispered to her. Ling Yan couldn't read their lips, but just from the girl's terror and her panicked expression, he decoded everything. The old man was telling her to lie to Lin Yuan, to report a fake mark to him, to kill him using his own trust. A moment later, the girl walked toward Lin Yuan, her step stiff, her knuckles turning white, her voice trembling. Your mark. I checked it for you. It's a snake. Lin Yang looked down at her, without exposing her lie. He just spoke calmly, uttering a sentence that left her completely frozen. Your mark is deer. The college girl's pupils contracted. She was so focused on carrying out her orders that she hadn't even thought about her own mark. But the moment she walked over, Lin Yan had already seen the pattern on the back of her neck and casually shared it with her. A 3-second silence hung in the air. Bei Yang continued, his voice completely cold, each word cutting like a scalpel. In the 4th round, your classmate got nervous and reported the wrong mark and ended up brain dead. The college girl's lips began to tremble violently. From the 1st round until now, how many people have died in this camp? The middle-aged woman, the man in the suit, the female nurse, the male teacher. Every single one of them was voted to death. And who initiated those votes? It was always directed by that old man. We watched all of this happen with your own eyes, but you never dared to think about why. Ling Yan took a step forward, his gaze locking directly onto the girl's eyes. You're an accomplice. Think. The female college student looked as if all her strength had been instantly drained. Her knees buckled, and her entire body began to sway. She turned back to look at the old man, as if trying to confirm some hidden truth, desperately hoping to find a denial on that kind, gentle face. But the old man's expression changed. Beneath that gentle mask, something incredibly subtle emerged. It wasn't anger. It wasn't panic. It was the sheer shock of a predator being bitten back by its prey. His left hand darted up, quickly touching his left ear before immediately dropping it. This time, every single person in the room saw the movement. The corners of Shurda's mouth slowly curled into a smirk. Gotcha. The old man pulled his hand away from his left ear. He did it incredibly fast, but it was already too late. Shura's gotcha was like a nail, pinning everyone's attention directly onto the old man's left ear. The female college student stared silently at the old man as the very first crack appeared in her face. The old man quickly regained his composure. He spread his hands with a calm smile. Got what? It's just a habit. When people get nervous, they always have their little quirks. Round 1. Before the mark was placed, you touched your left ear. Ling Yang interrupted him. His voice wasn't loud, but every single word carried immense weight. Round 2. You touched it again. Round 3, the round 17. Exactly 3 seconds before entering the cell in every single round, you would touch your left ear. The frequency was constant. The timing was constant. Without a single exception, the old man's smile stiffened slightly. When people are nervous, their subconscious movements are completely random. Scratching their hair, rubbing their fingers, biting their lips. The location and frequency always change. But your movement is precise down to the exact same hand, the exact same spot, and the exact same split second. This isn't nervousness. To confirm this, Lin Ryan began slowly pacing around the old man, like a hunter circling a trapped beast. What were you confirming? Before entering the cells each round, you need to confirm one piece of information. Your own mark. Ordinary players rely on their teammates to tell them, but you never asked anyone. For 17 rounds, you never once asked anyone to help you check the mark on your back. The old man was only responsible for receiving others' marks and assigning answers. But as for his own answer, no one ever knew how he got it. You didn't need anyone to tell you, because you have your own source of information. Lin Yan stopped in his tracks, facing the old man directly. It is hidden right inside your left ear. A tiny, uncontrollable twitch rippled across the old man's face. With anyone else, this slip-up wouldn't have lasted more than 0.2 seconds. But to a novelist trained to observe every detail, 0.2 seconds is more than enough to seal your guilt. This dreamscape, you built it. Ling Ying continued, peeling back the layers. The rules, you made them. The cells, you designed them. The rough stone walls, the murky black soup. Everything was designed to ensure players couldn't get their marks on their own. They had to rely on each other. You created an absolute information asymmetry, and then sat at the very top of that information chain, watching us tear each other apart. The old man's smile finally faded. His once kind face looked like an oil painting soaked in water, colors peeling away, layer by layer, revealing the lifeless, ash-gray canvas underneath. 16 people, Lin Yan said, holding up his fingers. They died in this trust game of your design. You didn't kill a single one of them with your own hands, but every single life was lost on your chessboard. The man in the suit died from your logical traps, and the nurse died because of your system of collective punishment. The male teacher died because of the spy you sent, using kindness as a blade and fear as your lever. Every time a blade was drawn, you made them believe it was their own choice. Only Lin Yan's voice echoed off the stone walls of the hall. The female college student had already collapsed onto the ground, her hands tightly covering her mouth, shaking uncontrollably. The faces of those she had voted to send to their deaths flashed before her eyes, one by one.
She thought she was just trying to survive.
But only now did she realize she was just a mindless weapon in the executioner's hands. The old man fell silent for a long, tense moment. Then, he began to clap. A slow, deliberate applause echoed through the empty hall, sounding like nails being driven into a coffin. Brilliant. His voice changed completely, all warmth vanishing in an instant. In its place was a cold, condescending glare, sizing them up. The novelist, right? I've had my eye on you since round 1. There's something wrong with your eyes. Living. They have fear in their eyes. But yours? Nothing. He raised his left hand, scooped his index finger into his left ear, and pulled out a tiny black device no bigger than a grain of rice. He held it in the palm of his hand. A backdoor communicator for the dreamscape. You're absolutely right. I always know what my mark is. The tiny black device flickered faintly under the dim, eerie light, like a cold, prying eye. But now that you know... So what? The old man crushed the device, letting the dark powder slip through his fingers. You can't kill me. The old man sneered, dusting the remaining powder off his hands and brushing his palms together, as if he had just done something completely insignificant. Now you all know that I'm the nightmare running this game. So, what now? He looked around at the three of them. No, his voice returning to that deeply unsettling calmness. You can't kill me. You can't get rid of me. There are still 4 rounds left. What on earth are you going to do? Ling Yudan hadn't been lying. I know the marks of all 3 of you. The old man continued. In the next round, I can make any one of you die. His cold gaze shifted to the young college girl, pausing for 2 tense seconds. And of course, that includes her. The girl snapped her head up, her lips turning pale with fear. She helped me vote to kill 11 people, after all, the old man said, his tone utterly casual. So, if you want to try and fight me, I'll make sure she's the first to die. After all, she served her purpose. She's useless to me now. This was his ultimate trump card, using one life to completely tie the hands of the other 2. As long as Ling Yuan and Shore cared about the girl's survival, they wouldn't dare make a move. And all the old man needs to do is drag this out for 4 rounds, until it comes down to a final 1-on-1. Once that happens, the game is decided. Shura toys with his fingertips, sking in a lazy drawl, then let him die. The college girl gasps in horror. Shura. Ling Yuan doesn't even turn his head, only softly calling out that single name. Sure shuts his mouth. But the smirk on his face doesn't fade. Lin Yuan walks over to the college girl, crouching down to look her straight in the eye. Her face is covered in tears as she scoots back in fear, only to hit the cold stone wall behind her. Are you afraid of him right now? Lin Yuan asks. Or are you afraid of us? The girl's throat tightens. She doesn't say a word. When you voted for him, Lin Yuan continues, his voice completely free of blame. You thought you were doing it to survive. But with every single vote you cast, his hold over you grew weaker because your usefulness was running out. Now, you're the only one left in this camp. Your value has been completely bled dry. The girl's eyes begin to waver with doubt. Just now, he used your life to threaten me, Tinkelwin says. But he wasn't in any real danger. Do you know why? Silence. Because he didn't even need to threaten you. He knew you would just keep doing exactly what you're told. These words are like a sharp needle, piercing straight into the most vulnerable part of the girl's heart. Her breathing hitches, and her eyes well up with tears once more. But this time, there's something else mixed in with her fear. It isn't terror. It's sheer humiliation. The old man watches this scene from afar, slowly, clenching his left hand. Ling Yan stands up and turns to face him. His voice is calm, as if you were just discussing the weather. You'll only have 2 trump cards left. The first is our mark. The second is his obedience. Now, even the second rule is crumbling. What do you have left? The old man didn't answer right away. The pause itself was the answer. You're rattled. Ling Yan repeated. Rattled. The old man laughed again. But this time, there was something wrong with his smile, like a crooked picture frame that no one bothered to straighten. I just find it amusing. Do you think you win, just because you've seen through me? No. Ling Yuan shook his head. I don't need to win. The old man narrowed his eyes. You designed this game, Noana said. Just to watch human nature collapse. The suspicion, the betrayal, the fear. You feed on all of it. But now, the game is coming to an end. Your audience is all dead. There are only 4 people left on the stage. Wei Ninan took a step forward. What else is there for you to watch? For the first time, a real crack appeared in the old man's smile. It wasn't the panic of being exposed, but something much deeper. Emptiness. Lin Yuan could see it clearly. This man had built this entire dreamscape, manipulated 16 lives. Yet, as the game neared its end, he felt a strange sense of loss for the very first time. One he couldn't even explain. A hunter losing his hunting ground suffers far more than the prey. In his mind, Lin Yan placed his final chess piece.
No need for a tactical board.
No need for a confrontation.
Just let him overturn the chessboard himself.
The countdown has begun. 58 minutes left. Before the cell door closes, the female college student slowly stood up from the ground and walked over to Lin Yan's side.
She didn't say a word.
Just standing there. The old man watched this scene. His left hand rose again, but froze right before touching his left ear. The communicator is completely shattered. As the countdown skips 10 minutes ahead, a tense stalemate settles over the hall. The old man backs away toward the supply station.
He sits back down.
His posture is as composed and relaxed as ever.
Lin Yan notices something.
The old man's left hand remains resting on his knee.
He hasn't lifted it once.
Now that his communicator is broken,
He's just like everyone else. He has to rely on other people's eyes to survive.
Lin Yan makes a mental note of this. He walks over to the female college student. The girl is standing by a stone pillar, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her eyes are still unfocused, like she has just surfaced from deep water, still gasping for air.
Turn around, Lin Yang says.
The female college student is stunned for a second
And slowly turns around. Lin Yang looks down at the back of her neck and says, "Fish."
The girl doesn't move.
Got it? I got it, she says, her voice barely a whisper,
As if she still isn't sure whether to believe those words.
Lin Yan doesn't rush her.
He turns and walks away. About 7 or 8 minutes pass, and Azura circles back from the other side, stopping briefly next to the female college student. He doesn't crouch down, but just glances down at the back of her neck and casually drops a word. Fish. Then he walks away. The female college student stands frozen in place, looking in Lin Yan's direction, and then at Asura's retreating figure. 2 people, 2 confirmations, and the exact same answer. She whispers the word, fish, to herself. And for the first time, she doesn't clench her fists. From a distance, the old man takes in the scene, silent. The countdown skips 30 minutes ahead. When the female college student goes to fetch water at the supply station,
Lin Yan happens to be there too.
holding her water bowl. She hesitates for a moment before speaking. Why did you tell me? Tell you what? The mark? She paused.
Aren't you afraid? I'll tell him.
Lin Yan glanced at her. Did you?
The college student didn't answer, but her fingers clenched. Then she let go and took a sip of water. The bowl of water in her hand stopped shaking. It was only rippling slightly.
Lin Yan picked up his own bowl.
Before turning to leave, he said, "In the next round, go find Shura and confirm it yourself. No need to ask me." The student looked up, wanting to say something, but Lin Yan had already walked away. She stood by the supply station, staring blankly at the murky black liquid in her bowl. 16 people were dead. The faces of those she had voted against, the man and woman in business suits, the nurse, the male teacher. One by one, they surfaced in her memory, so vividly that her stomach wrenched. She thought she was just trying to survive, but Lai Yin said she was the executioner's blade. She didn't know which of those 2 versions was the truth. Maybe both were. With only 5 minutes left on the countdown, and the cell doors about to lock, the college student walked over to Shura. Her steps were steadier than before, but she still stopped just a short distance from him. Lowering her voice, she whispered, "Can you help me check something?" Shura didn't turn around. He only shifted his body slightly, so she could clearly see the mark on the back of his neck. The student looked, read it aloud, and Shooter nodded in confirmation. Neither of them said another word. She walked into the cell. The stone door slammed shut. In the darkness, a mechanical voice rang out. "State your mark." The thorny collar around her neck loosened for a split second. The cell doors opened once more. All 4 of them had survived. The old man walked out of his cell. This was immediately locked onto the college student. He wore that same kindly, gentle smile as always. The student stared back at him. She didn't look down this time. She didn't walk over to his side either. She just stood her ground, meeting his gaze coldly. The old man's smile froze for 3 whole seconds, and then he looked away. Lin Yan stood by the stone pillar, noticing every detail. The first step was complete. The marks had refreshed. Round 18 began. The old man approached the female student on his own, his voice regaining that familiar warmth. "Let me check for you this round." The student didn't turn around immediately. She hesitated for a second, before turning to the side. The old man looked down at the back of her neck and said, "Snake." She nodded, without saying thank you. Lin Yan watched the whole thing from 3 steps away. Once the old man left, he walked over and whispered 2 words in her ear. "The duck." The student's fingers curled inward slightly. She didn't look back. Lin Yan stood firmly beside her, speaking in a calm, steady voice, as if stating a fact that had nothing to do with him. In round 4, your classmate gave the wrong mark. The first person in the camp died. What did he do back then? The student remained silent. He stepped up to run the vote, turning everyone's fear into a set of rules. Lin Yan said, "Your classmate hadn't even been dead for 5 minutes, and he had already turned that life into a weapon." The student swallowed hard. In the 6th round, the middle-aged woman was voted out. The reason? She hesitated for too long when reporting her mark.
Lei Yuan continued.
Do you remember what he said back then? He said he was just trying to remember. The student's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, and then he said,
The nightmare doesn't need to remember.
Lin Yan paused.
There is absolutely no logic to that sentence, but everyone believed it. The student didn't object. The man in the suit was the first to suggest helping each other. He died in round 9. The nurse had followed him since the first round and died in round 10. The male teacher took you in to act as a spy and died in round 14.
Wei Yang turned to look at her.
Have you noticed a pattern? The student slowly raised her head. Every single person who died was someone who had been useful to him at some point. Ling Yan said, "Once you're of no use to him, you're dead." The hall fell so dead silent that the only sound left was the dripping water from the distant supply station. The old man sat by the stone wall, keeping his eyes away from them, but the slight tilt of his shoulders gave him away. He was listening.
Ling Yan didn't even bother to lower his voice.
What use are you to him now anyway? The college girl didn't say a word, but something shifted in her eyes. It wasn't despair. It was a cold, heavy realization sinking deep into her chest. She remembered what the old man said in the second round, the first time he patted her shoulder. "I'll protect you." Back then, she actually thought she had found someone to rely on, like a drowning person desperately grasping at a lifeline. Now she knew it wasn't a life preserver at all. It was a fishing net. He walked toward the supply station to get some water, pretending as if nothing had happened. As he passed by, the old man looked up and offered him a smile. He smiled back and then walked right past him, and never stopping for a second. Behind his back, the old man's smile lingered for 2 seconds before slowly fading into nothing. The countdown skipped ahead by 40 minutes. Carrying a bowl of water, the college girl walked over to the corner where Lin Yuan and Su Lo were standing. She stopped just a short distance away from them. Not saying a word, she just stood there. Duo glanced at her out of the corner of his eye, but didn't push her away. Ling Yan remained silent as well. The three of them just stood there, their backs turned completely against the old man. From a distance, the old man stared at them, his left hand slowly clenched into a tight fist before relaxing again. Finally, he spoke, his voice as steady as ever. "Do you really think standing together means you've won?" No one answered him. Their silence was far more crushing than any comeback. For the first time in this game, the old man found himself in uncharted, unsettling territory. He wasn't the one pulling the strings anymore. He was being shut out. The countdown hit the final 5 minutes. The cell doors slammed shut.
The four of them retreated into their respective cells.
Before passing through his stone door, the old man cast one last glance back. The main hall was completely empty now, leaving behind nothing but bloodstains and a heavy, suffocating silence. He stepped into the cell. The stone door crashed down. In the darkness, a mechanical whirring sound echoed. "Please identify your mark." The old man fell silent for a full 3 seconds. No communicator. Think. No one to give him the answer. The 19th round of marks had refreshed. At this very moment, the 3-to-1 standoff was officially locked in. Standing in the center of the hall, the old man looked around. For the first time, he couldn't find a single leverage point to exploit.
诺要看
No fear left to ignite. No hostages left to threaten. Every single one of his cards had been stripped away, one by one, over the last 18 rounds. Now, standing here, he was nothing but an empty shell. Lin Yan walked up to him and said, "Your mark is road." The old man didn't even flinch. "Go into the cell. Think so hard to be answer correctly, and you live."
Lin Yan said, "You made the rules."
You know better than anyone that the meaning behind this is very clear. We won't let you die in this cell. You will live. You will survive every single round. You will live for a very, very long time. The old man understood. For the first time, something hard to define appeared in his eyes. It wasn't fear. It was something much deeper than fear.
Zhuo stepped out from behind the stone pillar.
He weighed a sharpened stone shard in his palm and said casually, 55 minutes is more than enough." The old man's gaze fell upon that stone shard. He stared at it for 2 seconds, then looked away. "You are violating the rules," he said. "The game will be terminated." Rule number 3. Ling Yan said, "No using physical force to make it impossible for others to answer." He paused. "But as long as you can still speak, we aren't breaking any rules." This was the most precise loophole in the original rules, one that the old man had left for himself. Beat them within an inch of their lives, but never shut their mouths. Back then, the bald man used this very rule to torture the glasses guy. Now that same blade is turned right back on you. The old man closed his eyes, then opened them again. His usual smile crept back onto his face. Only this time, there was absolutely nothing behind that smile. "How interesting," he said. But Zhulo was already done listening to him. For the next 55 minutes, only 2 sounds echoed through the hall. Shua's calm, chilling questions, and the old man's halting, broken answers.
Shua wasn't asking about Ji,
But the structure of the dreamscape itself, the hidden rules behind the rules, and every single detail of this game, from design to execution. At first, the old man tried to play dumb, talking in circles with vague, evasive words. But Shua didn't press him. He just waited quietly for the old man to finish his runaround and then rephrase the question in a different way. Lin Yuan sat by the stone pillar, committing every word the old man said to memory, breaking them down
analyzing them, and cross-referencing them with the information he already had. The female college student leaned against the opposite stone wall. She didn't look over, but just kept her head down, her fingers slowly tracing the rim of her water bowl.
With only the final 5 minutes left on the countdown,
Shura stopped, brushed off his hands, and stood up.
the old man slumped on the ground, laying against the stone wall, his breathing ragged
And uneven. Yet, there was still a spark in his eyes as he looked up at Ling Yuan,
his lips twitching into a faint smirk.
"What is it you want from me?"
The way out of this dream,
Leon replied.
The old man let out a laugh, but this time, there was something genuine in it.
as if he had finally been asked a question actually worth answering. He opened his mouth and got half a sentence out before the sudden blare of the cell closing alarm cut him off. The harsh mechanical noise completely drowned out his voice.
The four of them were forced back into their respective cells.
Before stepping through the stone door, Lin Yuan did one final check on the old man's seal. In the pitch black, the mechanical sound whirred to life again. The old man spat out the correct answer just in time.
The collar around his neck loosened,
And he survived. As the cell doors opened once more, the old man stepped out
Stopped right in front of Lincoln.
And finished the sentence he had started.
The exit is not inside the dream. In the 20th round, at 55 minutes, Shura escorted the old man into the cell in the far corner. The surrounding stone walls formed a natural dead end. He didn't waste any words. He crouched down and got to work,
Ling Yan stood 3 paces away.
watching the old man's face. Once the torture began, the old man clenched his teeth, refusing to make a sound. Shura's technique was brutally precise. Every single strike landed directly on his most sensitive nerve endings, yet he carefully avoided any spot that would affect his ability to speak. This wasn't violence, it was absolute control over anatomy. After enjoying this for about 10 minutes, the old man finally spoke. But he wasn't begging for mercy. Instead, he sneered, "Do you really think this will get you answers?" His voice was raspy, but steady. "I designed this game. I orchestrated their deaths. What is your petty torture compared to that?"
Li Yang crouched down directly in front of him.
Looking him straight in the eye. "It's not that you don't fear pain. You just think holding out is worth it." The old man didn't answer. "But you have no leverage left now."
Wei Yan continued. Why hold out?
To wait for the game to reset, to wait for the next batch of players to arrive? The old man's eyes flickered. It was utterly deceitful. But Lane One caught it. The dreamscape won't stop running just because you keep quiet.
Wei Yan continued.
But can bring it to an early end. An end. The old man repeated the words, as if tasting a foreign word. "Do you really think beating the game is the end? Then what is it?" The old man fell silent. For a long time, Shura waited beside them, idly spinning a stone shard between his fingers, before bringing it to a halt. Finally, the old man spoke. His voice was flat, like someone who had finally decided to come clean. "This place isn't a game. It's a selection process." Lin Yuan didn't press him. "A selection for the administrators the dreamscape needs." He paused. "And you two are the answer. So from the very beginning, winning was never your goal." Lei Yan spoke, and the old man didn't deny a thing. He didn't say another word. "This game you designed," Lin Yuan continued. "The voting mechanism, the information monopoly, and the spreading of fear. None of this was meant to keep the nightmare alive. It was to weed out anyone who isn't qualified, to force the real hunter out into the open."
Smart, the old man said.
For the first time, a trace of genuine admiration slipped into his voice. "But you're still one step short. I'm not the nightmare." The old man raised his head, staring straight into Lin Yuan's eyes. "The nightmare is this game itself. I'm just the designer of one of its levels." Outside the hall, the countdown alarm blared. Only 5 minutes left. The condition buyer, Hewer, stood up. He wiped the blood on his hands onto the hem of his shirt and walked out of the corner. His expression was exactly the same as before he walked in.
Nian cast one last glance at the old man,
Then turned and walked away. The four of them entered the cell. The stone door slammed shut. In the dark, Lingyan replayed the old man's parting words in his head. The door to the first level. What else lies behind that door? From the 21st round to the 23rd round, Shura never stopped. The old man's body began to break down during the 22nd round. It wasn't a sharp pain in any particular spot, but a sensation of rotting from the absolute core. Like a tree repeatedly drenched in acid rain.
Bark still stands,
But the inside is already hollowed out. The 23rd round was cut short. For the first time, he didn't try to spout any more smooth-talking words. He simply leaned against the stone wall and closed his eyes. Back when he was in his teens, he used to haul cargo with a crowd in the narrow alleys of the urban villages. His shoulders were permanently bruised, and when his soles wore through, he would use tape to bind them together and keep going. The people around him either resigned themselves to their fate or rotted away. But he chose a third path, reading people, figuring out who had a weakness, and who had a powerful backer, constantly looking for who he could use as a stepping stone. It took him 20 years to claw his way out of the mud. The first time he sat in that spacious executive office, with people below waiting on his every nod, he remembered that feeling. It wasn't satisfaction, it was sheer addiction. Power wasn't just a means to an end. Power itself was the ultimate high. But the people above him were older,
slicker, and masters at using the rules to tie people down. If he wanted to crush someone or make a scandal vanish, there were 7 or 8 pairs of eyes watching his every move from above. Even lifting a finger left a trail. The cage was gilded, but it was still a cage. This suffocating tension in his throat just kept building up. He didn't even know what to call it until one day, someone found him. Not a person from the real world, but a voice in a dream. It told him of a place where there were no approvals, no bureaucracy, and none of the red tape that turns men into spineless cowards. There, he could write the rules himself. He could decide who lived and who died. He could drag the ugliest parts of human nature into the light and watch them writhe. He didn't hesitate, not even for a single second. The beast had broken free from its cage. He greedily drank in this newfound freedom. Power was abused. Human nature laid bare. But a beast is always a beast. He had simply been moved to a larger cage. His physical body was crushed, his soul utterly erased. But he refused to accept this. Opening his eyes once more, the eerie green light on the ceiling was still there. The old man slowly raised his head.
Sheriff stood just 3 steps away.
While Leon Ran crouched right in front of him. "Have you figured it out yet?"
Lin Yan asked. The old man didn't answer.
He stared at his hands, which were swollen and bruised, with dried blood crusted in his palms. That blood belonged to Shira, but it was also his own. The creator, who had branded himself with this label for 20 rounds. But right now, the designer is slumped against the stone wall, unable to say a word. Even begging for mercy won't bring him the sweet release of death. All he can do is wait for the next round to begin. Suddenly, he remembers something. Find a great stuff. Back when he was first designing this game, he had given this mechanism a name. The learned helplessness experiment. He mutters the words aloud. His voice is completely flat, like he's reading someone else's epitaph.
Lin Yan stays silent.
I've read about that term in literature before. The old man continues, repeatedly applying inescapable torment until the subject gives up all will to fight back and completely surrenders to utter helplessness. He pauses. I built that mechanism right into the rhythm of rounds 1 through 10, specifically to crush the Grand Alliance's will. It worked pretty well. Shorter chimes in from the side. His tone is like critiquing a dish. The old man closes his eyes, offering no rebuttal. It did work well. He has just proven it himself. The countdown alarm blares. The final 5 minutes.
Ling Yan stands up and walks to the front of the cell.
He turns back and says one last thing. His voice isn't loud, but it hits like a nail hammered into the stone wall. You said you only designed one of the stages. Ling Yab asks, then who designed the next stage? The old man opens his eyes. His lips twitch slightly, but no sound comes out. Yet, for the very first time, something new appears in his expression. It isn't despair, it's sheer terror. The 24th round's mark refreshes. The old man slumps against the stone wall. There's no need for Shura to lay a hand on him anymore. After 3 rounds, his own body has made the judgment for him. He can't hold out any longer. Only 4 people are left in the hall. It is as silent as a dried-up well. Shura is getting water from the healing station. His back is turned to this side. Right in this brief opening, the college girl walks over from the stone wall, passing right by Lingwan. Her expression is hard to read. It isn't relief, nor is it grief. It's more like she's finally done something she should have finished a long time ago.
Lin Yan glances at her.
Whispering in a low, tense voice. You know what this means, right? I know. But it didn't have to be you. Lei Yan continues. But if you're willing, this is the cleanest way out. The college girl falls silent for a few seconds, then nods. Lin Yan turns and walks toward the old man, crouching down to look directly into his fading, unfocused eyes. Your mark is a fish. The old man doesn't answer right away. He just stares at Lind. It's as if trying to figure out if it's the truth. Or maybe wondering if truth even matters to him anymore. Why tell me? He asks, his voice raw and raspy. Because the choice is yours, Lin Yan says. We're not the ones killing you. You're the one deciding whether to leave. The old man closes his eyes. In the hall, the countdown continues to tick away. The gloomy, flickering light stretches the shadows of the 4 of them, making them look incredibly long. Shore returns, leaning against a stone pillar in silence, his eyes fixed on them. The old man sits slumped against the stone wall for what feels like eternity. Fragments of his life begin to flash before his eyes, cramped in narrow alleys of the urban slums, a gilded cage, and the tempting olive branch offered by a dream. He thought he had finally found a place of absolute freedom, but it turned out to be nothing more than another kind of trap. And this time, there isn't even an exit. Unable to die, and hopeless of survival. This is the exact living hell he once designed for others. Only 5 minutes left. The cell doors are about to lock. The 4 of them slowly make their way toward their respective cells. The old man struggles to his feet, his steps heavy and agonizingly slow. Like a traveler who has walked for far too long, he has finally decided to stop. As he steps into his cell, the massive stone door slammed shut. In the darkness, a cold mechanical voice echoed. State your imprint. Silence hung in the air for a full 4 seconds. The serpent thorn collar suddenly snapped tight. The sharp barbs pierced straight through her carotid artery. There was no struggle. There were no agonizing screams. The mechanical voice from the dome rang out once more. But this time, its tone had completely changed. It was as if some long-dormant system had finally been triggered. Bang Yen has been eliminated. All surviving players have cleared the stage. All the cell doors swung open.
Lin Yundan stepped out of his cell.
Standing in the middle of the empty hall, the bloodstains on the 16 glass cells were still there. Hot dark soup at the supply station was still mostly full. Everything looked exactly as it did 24 rounds ago. Yet, nothing was the same anymore. Ra walked up to his side. The two of them stood side by side, neither saying a single word. Then, the light source on the dome began to shift colors, shifting from an eerie, ghostly green to a ghastly pale white. Cracks that had never existed before began to split across the stone walls, spreading as if something was violently clawing its way out from within. Lin Yan stared at the fissure, his brow furrowing slightly. The old man had once said, the years, that he was merely the designer of this single stage. The crack grew wider and wider, until it finally split completely open. The long, narrow gap sliced through the gray space like a razor-sharp blade, tearing it in two. A cold, piercing light bled through, as if even the very air had grown heavy and suffocating. In the middle of the hall, neither Lin Huayan nor Asura showed any intention of leaving. The two stood right at the edge of the fissure, their silhouette calm and unmoving, as if their gaze could see far beyond this crumbling reality. They turned toward the female college student. His voice was slow, yet loaded with deep, heavy meaning. Tell me, that weakness of yours has long ceased to be just simple fragility.
Lin Yan spoke.
The female college student didn't answer. Lan Yan's voice dropped to a low, cold whisper. You kept closing in, using countless subtle movements to pressure that anxious girl into grabbing the wrong mark. You pretended to be terrified. You acted like you needed protection.
All just to bait the old man.
Shora stepped closer too, adding, every time you showed weakness, you made the old man trust you more. And before he changed his mind and got eliminated, you were the last one to speak to him. You are not the wife. You are far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The accused remained silent. She only took a slow step forward, but her posture was steadier than anyone's. Without offering an excuse, she slowly turned her head. Her gaze cut through the air, landing on the crowd of people swept up in this fractured reality. Her eyes were hidden behind the glare of her glasses, reflecting nothing but broken shadows. No one could read the calculations and secrets hidden behind them. This world isn't as simple as you think, she murmured. I'm not the weakling in this story. Nor am I completely innocent. Lin Yan's gaze was sharp as a knife, trying to pierce through the glare and expose her true face. But even as she turned around, there was only a cold, empty void in her reflection.
Shara fell silent for a moment,
then spoke slowly. What she's hiding goes deeper than any nightmare. From deep within the rift, the howling wind whispered countless secrets. The three of them locked eyes, a tense, frozen flame between them. All the answers hung suspended in those glasses, reflecting a shattered world, waiting for the moment to explode. The air grew heavy, and time itself seemed to freeze. Yet, the female college student only looked back at them in silence. A final flash of light glinted off her lenses, masking the pitch-black unknowns within. She didn't answer a single question. She simply smiled. He smiled, the faint, delicate smile, like a flower blooming in the wrong season. Beautiful, but unsettling. I look forward to our next meeting, she said, her tone light and casual, as if she were speaking of something entirely trivial. Then she turned and stepped into the rift, vanishing into thin air. Ling Yuan and Shua stared at each other for 2 seconds. No intel, no leverage, not a single card left to play. This crack in the wall was their only way out, their only chance. One after the other, they stepped inside. The gap closed right behind them, as if it had never existed in the first place. The young college student opened her eyes. She was lying in a massive bed, surrounded by crisp white sheets. The city lights outside the floor-to-ceiling windows stretched endlessly into the night. The air in the room was freezing, chilled to a low temperature that felt completely deliberate. He sat up. His movements were incredibly slow, like a wild animal, just waking from hibernation. Languid, yet deceptively innocent. He reached his hand out toward the nightstand and took off his glasses. Without them, he was a completely different person from the man in her dreams. Without the lenses to shield them, his eyes looked like two bottomless abysses. Beneath that calm surface, something undefinable was brewing. It wasn't sanity, nor was it madness. It was an extremely dangerous state, suspended right between the two. He gently traced the frames of his glasses with his fingertips as a slow smile curled the corners of his lips. It was barely a curve, but it completely transformed his entire aura. He just sat there, holding that exact pose, as if savoring a memory. It was a long, long time before he finally turned around. Behind him, a computer screen glowed on the desk. The cool blue light washed over his face, making his smile flicker in and out of the shadows. He didn't walk over right away. He just tilted his head, casting a glance at the screen, his gaze softening into something almost doting.
It was the look you'd give a prized possession you've hidden away for years.
Then, barefoot, he stepped onto the cold floor and walked over to sit in the chair. Resting his chin on his folded hands, he stared intently at the screen.
On the screen is a spreadsheet. Above the dense rows of names and data, there is a line of text.
The font is tiny,
But he clearly knows it by heart. He taps his finger on the screen, pausing on a specific name,
Thing Yang, he murmurs.
as if calling out to an old friend.
or locking in on a target. His faint smirk deepens. Elsewhere, Lin Yuan snaps his eyes open in the dark. The ceiling above him is the familiar white. Outside, he hears the rumble of traffic.
The whistling wind. Every sound of the real world.
His room is small. Stacks of handwritten notes pile up chest high on his desk, and the walls are covered with a dense web of case files. Red strings and sticky notes weave together into a giant net.
He sits up,
Staring silently out the window for a moment. Then he looked down at his hands. There is no collar around the back of his neck. No bruising. Get that lit?
not a single trace.
But he clearly remembers the scars of every single round, every dead face, and the old man's final words. He was only the designer of one of the stages.
Lin Yuan gets up and walks to his desk. An unopened envelope has appeared on his desk.
There is no sender or recipient on it. Only 4 words. Congratulations on clearing the game.